Today we will be creating this beautiful landing page scrollable experience, and this will be based on our previous project, which was this interesting but boring pill-shaped capsule with a background, and then we will be turning into this beautiful landing page with a lot of effects and scrollable experience. You can turn any landing page or any project that you already have on React 3 Fiber into something that is scrollable and that is more engaging. So please stick until to the end. Please subscribe and hit the like button, and let's get started. The first thing we need to adjust a little bit is the colors. They are a little bit too strong, so I'll be changing the color for the background to something that it's more bright. And also I will be changing the fill opacity for that text so it kind of merges a little bit better with the background. Let's create the overlay file that will receive all of our HTML components and everything that will be in front of our Three.js and React 3 Fiber experience. In this new overlay file, you need to export default function overlay. This will be placed on our file once we export. Then we need to return, and for now, we will just return a very simple div container. And inside that, we will be placing a header. Don't worry, because we will not have any styles, but I will be applying the styles right after. I just want to show you where and how you should start. So now that you save this file, you need to output this in our project, and this will be done in the index.jsx file. I will output a fragment here because now we are just outputting the scene, and I need to output the scene and the overlay. That's it. And we save. And now, as you can see, we have the overlay, but it's not in the right place. So we need to apply some styles so we can bring this inside our experience and not under our scene. What I will do, I will create a folder here called overlay. I will place our overlay inside that folder, and then inside the scene, the overlay folder, I will be adding another file, styles.css. The first thing we need to adjust is the container, and I will just save this. And of course it is complaining because the path is now wrong on our index.jsx, because now the overlay, it is inside the overlay folder. So you just need to add the overlay folder here. Everything is working properly again. And now let's come back to our scene of our overlay, and we need to import the styles. We have the styles, they are functioning properly, but of course some things are missing. Like I have a brand that I have for this specific thing, and also we need to style the header to look a little bit better. I just pasted all of the styles for the header, and this is basically CSS. I will not go through all of the items because I'm assuming you know how to do it. But if you need any help, please reach me in the comments. But what is happening here, I'm just setting the header to be display flex, and then we have 3 elements inside here. So we have the header, the first div, the second div, and the button. And all of them are spreading because of the properties that I'm setting here, spacing between. And that's it. We have the header, we have the everything else, and the page is still working, but we still don't have anything to see as a scrollable thing. So let's go back into the overlay file and let's place some content here so we can actually see something on the screen. In the overlay file, I will paste a bunch of HTML tags, and also in the CSS, a lot of styling so we can see things properly on our page. And as you can see, as I do it, we already have all of these sections, but as you can guess, something is wrong. So everything is scrolling, and our container with our canvas is going with the scroll. And by the way, what we can see here is just basically CSS and JavaScript and HTML. You can copy if you want, or you can design your own page. And for specifically for the canvas, which is the most interesting part for us here, we need to change a property to make this stick to the background and not scrolling with our page, because this is not what we want. We want the canvas to be acting as a background, kind of interactive background for our page. We only need to change a very small property, in this case in our styles, our main styles.css, not the one inside the overlay, which is changing the canvas positioning to be fixed. And with this little magic, now we can scroll through all of our page without scrolling anything else. And as you can see, everything still works, like the camera and etc. And we have this scrollable page. This is pretty neat. But now comes the interesting part. We want to move the camera as we scroll with the page. To animate the camera, and based on the scroll position, we will be installing GSAP from GSAP and also React GSAP from also GSAP. This will be great because they have a new hook that will allow us to animate a little bit easier. Create a new file called camera animation. Export default function camera animation. And this for now will return null. And let's import some dependencies that we'll be using to animate the camera. We need GSAP, the scroll trigger, and the GSAP hook from GSAP React. We need to register those plugins that we'll be using. So we just need to register the plugins this way. Let's for now create a very basic timeline just to be able to see something on the screen. To animate the camera, we need access to the camera inside React Tree Fiber, and we can do this by using the useTree hook, and then we can grab the camera, and this way we will have access to the current camera we have on the scene. To use GSAP hook, you just need to type useGSAP, and then inside it looks like any other hook, and then inside I created a very basic animation telling this timeline to animate the camera position from this position to this position using some easing. Let's test it. So we go back into our scene, and for now I will comment out the camera rig because of otherwise we will have a conflict that we will be fixing in a minute. But just for a purpose of testing, I will comment out the camera rig, and then I will place the camera animation here and see what happens. And as you can see, immediately the camera animated. Let me do it again. So when we refresh, as soon as the camera animations goes in, the camera animates. But this is not what we want. We don't want the animation to happen as soon as this component is rendered. We want this to be happening as we scroll. So we need to change some things around here. And basically the only thing that we need is to add another property inside this timeline, attaching this timeline to the scroll trigger. And some important things here are the trigger. This will be the element triggering this specific animation, this specific timeline animation, and then the start, the end, and the scrub. Let me turn on the markers so you can see what is happening. And as soon as you save, you can see that the animation is happening based on the scroll. It is not exactly what we want, but we are reaching there. So for now, we need to change the way the camera looks at the scene because we are moving the camera, but we are not moving the target. So we need to define a target to the camera so we can change this property. Outside our component, I will be creating a new vector 3 to hold the camera target where I want the camera to be looking at during the animation. And of course, we need to import. And now let's move the camera target and define the camera target to be always looking, making the camera looking always to this camera target. We can do that by using the use frame hook, and this will basically grab the state of the current use frame inside React Tree Fiber, and then we will make the camera always look at the target. And when we save, now when we animate, we can see that our camera is always looking at the target. It looks great. But one thing that we lose now is the camera that we had, the camera animation that we had before, but we can have both because this will create a conflict between our two animations. So we need to make some changes to our camera rig to be able to bring back the mouse movement. What I will do, I will replace this camera rig with another version of it that it's actually outputting a group, and then we will grab all of the children of this camera rig and we will animate the children itself and not the camera. So remember, previously we were animating the camera directly, but now we are animating the camera using the camera animation component. So we need to replace this by this one. This is, by the way, from React Tree Fiber examples. I did not create this one. You can find this in the React Tree Fiber examples and documentation, especially on the dry library. But once we have this, now we can bring back our camera movement with the mouse, but we need to change things inside the scene, because instead of having this camera rig this way, we need to encapsulate everything inside our camera rig. So I will grab this and I will do camera rig this way, and then I will also close this, and I want the text to be part of this animation, so I will bring the text inside the camera rig as well. And as you can see, we now have the mouse movement and the camera animation both at the same time, which is a little bit more natural. One thing that I don't like, it is the way the text is too strong, like it is moving too much and the particles are not moving at all. So we need to change that. What I would do, I will grab the particles and place it inside the camera rig, so this can be also affected by the mouse position, as you can see. But I don't want the text to be moving. So instead of move the text outside the camera rig, what I can do, I can grab the billboard component from dry, and then I embrace the entire text component with the billboard. And now we can see the capsule is moving, the text is there, we have some kind of movement, but it's not changing the z-axis rotation, which looks a little bit better to me. We have the very basic animation done. Let's continue and do some extra work, because I also want to reposition the camera when we are looking at the pill. I don't like this idea of having the text being in front of the pill, so I want to move this a little bit to the right. And to do that, we need to change the camera animation. And now what we need to do is actually add another step into our animation, because I want another animation happening at the same time as this one, but now moving the camera target, this guy here. We will just add another step into our camera animation, and this is, by the way, from the GSAP documentation. This magic symbol here is just telling GSAP to animate the green box together with the purple box, and that's why the magic happens, and we animate the camera and the camera target at the same time. But the way I'm working here, I'm creating a new animation for the camera target this time, and I'm animating from this position to this new position in that trigger on the section 2. Remember, it is the section that it's come right above the first one, and I'm moving the camera target this time, but I'm changing this parameter here. So without this parameter, they will not move at the same time. What this guy is doing, it is a property on any timeline, on any animation that you do. You can set a delay, And in this, using this parameter, I'm setting that this animation should happen at the same time as this animation. It is a little bit tricky to understand, but once you dive deep into the GSAP documentation, it's pretty easy to understand and to remember how everything works. And now, as you can see, as we scroll, we are also moving it a little bit to the right. Of course, this is not the real resolution for monitors. It will be something more around this. And then as you can see, by moving this amount, at least for me, it works. One thing that I don't like, it is the way this text is getting in front of the animation when we are animating the pill. I feel that we should change that, and this text should vanish while we are moving here. And we can do that by simply adding another step into this animation, but this time I will be controlling the section 1 wrapper, which is exactly this wrapper here with all of those elements, and I will be just placing the opacity to 0 while I'm scrolling this section 2. So again, let's put some markers here so you can understand what is happening. And again, we are doing it, you see, like here is different. The start is when the section 2 is on the top of the section 2 hit the bottom of the section of the page, and then it will end when the top of the section 2 hits 70% of the viewport. And this is why you have the markers here, and as soon as I start scrolling, you can see I'm moving everything around. So again, everything is happening at the same time because of this symbol here. See the pattern? So I'm animating the camera position and the camera target and the top section wrapper all at the same time. But in this case here, I'm just setting the opacity. I could also move, for example, Y% and let's say -100. Let's see what happens. Actually, it should be 200. See, I can also move down as I go up, but I don't like it. I think it is more natural. It is just changing the opacity. And that's it. That's the way you can animate 3D elements and 2D elements from the GSAP hook. Let's continue and animate the second part of the page with the section 3. Now that we animate the sections here, I just added 2 other steps to the animation, meaning that I want to animate this time the camera position from this position to this new position using the section 3 as the trigger. And as you can see now, and as we start, let me remove the markers because they don't make any sense now. Maybe I can add the markers here so you can understand what's happening. Yeah, so we are animating the camera, and again, it starts when the section 3 hits the bottom and ends when the top hits the end of the viewport. So it is working properly. See, we have this first animation, and then right after we have the second animation. But the problem is when we refresh, things start in that position, which is weird because we are not animating that at all. So if I comment out all of this and then we save, it goes back to the right position. What is happening? Well, when you animate things using timelines, everything starts to animate right in the right moment you define the animation. But we need to change this behavior because we don't want this entire part to be animating at all if we did not reach that point in the animation. To be able to fix that, we need to change a small property here called immediate render, and we need to set this to false. Otherwise, this will keep happening. So we need to say to those two animations, they should not immediately render when we define the animation. And now if we refresh, it stays in place and the animation plays smoothly. And now we can remove the markers, of course, because we don't need this anymore. And we are done. We have the page, it is animating. You have all of the elements and it is looking great. And we have both things. We have the mouse movement and we have the scrollable experience. Thank you very much for watching. If you found this helpful, please make sure to subscribe and check the description below for the source code. And don't forget to share with your friends, like, and keep giving me feedback because this way I can know my content is useful for you. See you in the next time. Thank you very much again. Bye bye.